The strange thing wasn't that the world was ending. The strange thing was that the grocery store was still open. The lights still buzzed overhead, the automatic doors still sighed open. The automatic doors still sighed open for anyone who came close enough. The registers still beeped. The coolers still hummed along the back wall, shivering behind fog glass doors, trying their best to keep milk cold in a universe that had clearly stopped honoring its side of the agreement. Outside, the parking lot was empty except for 3 cars, 2 shopping carts, and a plastic bag tangled in a shrub beside the handicap spaces, rattling like a forgotten piece of tin siding in a sharp wind. The bag moved like something trying to breathe. And every night the same woman came in at 11:43. Gray coat, blue scarf, hair pinned up under one of those soft knit hats old women wear when winter has stopped being charming and become a personal insult. She'd walk through the doors, stop just inside, look around like she had never seen the place before, and ask the same question. "Excuse me," she would say, "do you still have canned peaches?" And every night I would tell her, "Aisle 7." And every night she'd smile like I had saved her life. Welcome back to Tavern Reflections. Tonight's reflection is not about monsters. Not exactly. It's about routine. It's about fluorescent lights and old tile floors and the strange little rituals humans perform when they know something is terribly wrong, but still need bread, milk, soup, batteries, cat food, aspirin, coffee, and maybe, if dignity has fully given up and crawled into the storm drain, a frozen pizza at 1 a.m. With a bag of cheese to put extra on it. Just saying. It's about the places we go when we don't know where else to go. It's about the grocery store that kept its doors open after the world outside had already closed. Jack Tucker once claimed there are places that survive the end of things simply because people still need them. He may have been talking about taverns. Or, perhaps, grocery stores. You enjoy strange stories, eerie reflections, and darker wanderings through the edges of reality. More strange doors await at TravisSivart.com. The store was called Morgan's Market, though nobody named Morgan had owned it in at least 20 years. It sat at the edge of a, dying town, because, we'll get to that. But it was between an abandoned bank and a laundromat with half the letters burned out in a sign. At night, the sign read, La Romt, which felt less like a business, more like a warning in a forgotten language. Morgan's was not a beautiful place. It was practical, square, beige, built in that timeless architectural style best described as someone had a coupon on bricks, cinder blocks, you know what I mean. The ceiling tiles were stained. The floor had a permanent waxy shine with that yellowing in certain spots that only comes with time and a little less than caring. The produce section always smelled faintly of lettuce water. Regret. There was one freezer near the back that made a knocking sound every few minutes, like something trapped inside was too tired to scream but too stubborn to die quietly. Probably the compressor. Needed bolted down or something. Or it could have been something else. After all, this was the world. I worked the night shift because the night shift paid $1 more an hour. The things we do. And because I'd reached that point in life where $1 more an hour sounded like strategy. There were 3 of us most nights. Marlene worked Register 1. She was 72, smoked too much, and had the spiritual energy of a raccoon guarding a dumpster behind a steakhouse. God, I love that woman. She knew everyone's business and kept it stored in her head like a file cabinet made of venom. So bitter. Russell was the manager. He had the face of a man permanently expecting corporate to call. Anxiety. Bundled into a white shirt and a striped tie. He wore the store polo tucked into khakis and moved through life with a clipboard, which is how you know someone has either authority or no soul left. Pick one. Maybe both. And then there was Corey, 19, night stalker. As in stalking shelves, not as in stalking people. Always wearing headphones even when nothing was playing. He believed this gave him a aura of mystery. As the young sometimes think basic things do. Mostly it made him miss half of what people said and knock over cereal displays. The town had been getting quieter for years. First, the factory closed. Then the clinic cut hours. Then the high school merged with another county because apparently even education had looked around and said, "No, thank you." People left slowly. That's how towns die. Not with one dramatic moment, not with a scream, not with flames and violins. They die one family at a time. One empty storefront. One church with more pews than people. One house with grass up to the windows and growing over the walkway. One diner that still has a sign on the door saying closed for repairs, even though the owner died 3 summers ago. Nobody knows it. Nobody remembers. And very few people care. By the time things truly started going wrong, we were already used to loss. Maybe that's why nobody noticed at first. The first odd thing was clocks. The clock above customer service said 9:17. The clock in the break room said 2:04. The clock on register 1 said 12 o'clock and blinked like it had just survived a power outage. But there'd never been a power outage. Well, not of that sort. My phone said 11:43. That was when the woman came in asking about canned peaches. Nothing alarming about that by itself. People buy canned peaches. Civilization has not yet fallen so far that fruit in syrup counts as supernatural. But then she came in the next night. Same time, same coat, same blue scarf, same question. "Excuse me, do you have canned peaches?" Marlene looked up from her crossword and said, "Again?" The woman blinked. "I'm sorry?" "You bought some yesterday." The woman smiled politely. "I don't believe I did." Marlene stared at her for a long moment, then pointed with her cigarette-stained finger. "Aisle 7. It always amazes me when I see somebody with cigarette-stained fingers. That takes dedication. But it happens." The woman thanked her and walked away. Third night, she came back at 11:43. "Excuse me," she said, "do you still have canned peaches?" It's like a bad joke. You're waiting for the third time around so you can hear the punchline. Corey pulled one side of his headphones off and whispered, "Dude." That was when the radios started acting strange. Morgan's had an old radio system that played local stations through speakers in the ceiling. Mostly country music, grocery store ads, weather reports, and that one mattress commercial. It used the same jingle for so long I assume everyone involved had died and the recording was legally considered a ghost. Then, one night, that night, the music cut out. Static filled the store. A man's voice came through, thin and far away. Residents are advised to remain indoors. Do not approach lights seen beyond the tree line. Do not respond to voices from storm drains. Repeat, do not. Then the radio snapped back into a cheerful ad for ham. Kind of weird having such a cheerful ad for ham, salted meats. But anyhow, Russell stood under the speaker, clipboard held to his chest. What station was that? Marlene didn't look up. A bad one. There are days you don't admire. Let me start that over. There are days when you do admire someone's ability not to panic. There are other days when you realize they stopped panicking years ago and now just accept the universe as a poorly managed inconvenience. Outside, the world kept getting stranger. The sky turned the color of old bruises. Not at sunset, not during storms, just sometimes. Midday, according to people who still came in, though I only saw the night. Customers would enter looking dazed and say things like, "It's purple over by the highway," or "The sun was wrong today." Then asked if potato chips were still 2 for $5. Roads emptied, gas stations closed. The bank next door stopped lighting its ATM. In one night, the entire building was gone. Just gone, not burned, not demolished. Gone. In its place was a field of wet grass. I hadn't been there the day before. Russell stood in the parking lot, staring at it. "I had a savings account there," he said. Marlene lit a cigarette beside the cart return. "Not anymore." Civilization did not collapse screaming. It collapsed under fluorescent lights while someone complained about the price of eggs. Which I get. But that was the part nobody tells you. Even when people are frightened, they still need things. They came in wrapped in coats and blankets, pushing carts with one bad wheel, squeaking along aisles, buying bottled water, canned soup, candles, batteries, dog food, instant coffee, toilet paper, and birthday cards. Yeah, birthday cards. World outside had gone sideways, but a man still spent 20 minutes deciding between "for my wonderful wife" and "to the woman who makes life beautiful." Maybe she was alive. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe the card mattered either way. That's the terrible mercy of routine. It gives your hand something to do while your mind stands at the edge of a cliff. A young mother came in one night with 2 children. They were both wearing pajamas under their coat. She bought crackers, peanut butter juice boxes, children vitamins, and a small plastic dinosaur from the clearance bin. Her hand shook when she paid. Outside, beyond the windows, Something bright moved behind the clouds. One of the children pointed. "Mommy, is that the moon?" The mother didn't look. "No," she said. "Don't look at it." Then she turned to me and asked if we still had coupons for the vitamins. Because what else could she ask? How does a human being respond to the impossible? Apparently, with coupons. The repeating customers started about a week after the sky changed. At least I think it was a week. Time in that store became difficult. The clocks disagreed. My phone stopped updating. Calendar in the break room showed March, though the air outside had the bitter bite of January. One customer insisted it was September because his corn had just come in. Yeah, we didn't live in the big city. The first repeater was the peach woman. Then came the man with the flowers. He wore a brown suit, bought a bouquet every night from a display that had been empty for days. He'd stand in front of it, reach into the metal bucket, and lift out flowers none of us could see until they were in his hand. Red roses, always fresh, always wet with that grocery store dew that happens on flowers. He'd bring them to the register 1, and ask, "Do these look appropriate?" Marlene, who'd rung up enough grief in her life to recognize it in any packaging, would say, "For what?" And every night he would answer, "An apology." She never asked to whom. After him came the boy in the frozen food aisle. He couldn't have been more than 8. Red jacket, untied shoes, pale face. He'd stand before the freezer doors, staring at boxes of waffles and frozen peas. Corey found him first. "Hey, kid," he said. "You lost?" The boy didn't turn around. "It's colder on the other side," the boy whispered. Corey, to his credit, did not immediately quit and run into the night. He came and got me, because apparently I looked like a man qualified to deal with ghost children near frozen vegetables. We stood together at the end of the aisle. The boy raised one hand and placed it on the glass. Frost spread from his fingers. Behind the freezer door, past the rows of frozen dinners, I saw something that was not the back of a freezer. I saw trees, black trees under a white sky, and between them, very far away, a line of people walking single file through the snow. Then the compressor kicked on, the glass fogged, and the boy was gone. I looked across the aisle, see if I just saw something reflected from the other coolers on the other side. No. Corey removed his headphones, and I swear to you, he never wore them again. But that was when the store began to rearrange itself. Aisle 3 became aisle 9. The cereal moved beside the motor oil. But we had never sold motor oil. Greeting cards appeared between the meat department and a shelf full of old glass jars labeled in handwriting none of us could read. The dairy section extended further than the building should have allowed. I walked it once for 6 minutes and never reached the end. The automatic doors no longer opened only to the parking lot. Sometimes they opened up to a fog, thick, barely moving, but moving nonetheless. Sometimes to rain. Once to a sunny afternoon with a marching band passing on a street I had never seen before. Once to complete darkness filled with the sound of insects, but not that comforting summer night noise. Something different. Russell tried locking them. The doors opened anyway. He tried unplugging them. They opened anyway. Marlene watched all this and said, "Carpet's gonna hate that." By then, corporate had not called in days, or weeks, or maybe ever. It became unclear whether corporate ever existed, or whether we had invented it as a way to imagine someone, somewhere, understood the rules. The thing about horror is that people think they'll recognize it. They think horror arrives with claws, with blood, with footsteps behind them in an empty hall. And sure, sometimes it does. But sometimes, horror arrives as a receipt printed with yesterday's date. Sometimes it looks like a shopping cart rolling by itself down aisle 5. Sometimes it's a woman asking for canned peaches for the 9th night in a row, while outside the windows the stars disappear, one by one. I began writing things down, not because I expected anyone to read it, because writing is another kind of routine. The mind, my mind, says, if I can describe it, I can survive it. Almost a rhyme. The same way Matthew Mathers would. I wrote about the peach woman, the flower man, the frozen boy. The parking lot grew longer each night, stretching into darkness, till the cart return looked miles away. I wrote about the customer who paid with coins stamped with the face of a king I'd never heard of. I wrote about the old man who asked what year it was, laughed when I told him and said, "Still, it's unfortunate." Wrote about the night every can in aisle 7 turns so the labels faced forward at the exact same time. That sound. Thousands of teeny metal adjustments. Like teeth clicking. That scraping, tapping as the can. Russell stopped making schedules after Marlene asked why he kept writing down names of employees who had never worked there. There was a Dennis on Thursday nights, a Priya in bakery, someone named Elk in produce. Russell insisted they were real. Marlene said there'd never been a bakery. She was right. And then, the next morning, there was. Warm lights, glass case, fresh bread, bell over the counter. Smelled of cinnamon and yeast. Behind it stood a woman with flour on her apron. "Morning," she said. I stared at her. "You work here?" "Always have," she said with a smile. That was the worst part. Not the impossible things. How things were familiar that had never been. Every change arrived as if it had always been true. The store was not breaking reality. It was editing it. And we were expected to keep up. Eventually, I understood the store had become something other than a store. I remember something Jack Tucker once supposedly said about places caught between realities. A tavern, he said, survives because travelers need stories. A store survives because travelers still need bread. At the time, I thought it sounded poetic. Standing beneath those fluorescent lights while the world disappeared outside, it sounded like a warning. Maybe it had always been waiting for the world to end so it could reveal itself. Maybe places became what people needed them to be. Hospitals became temples. Schools became shelters. Church basements became distribution centers. Grocery stores became the last proof that life had once been ordinary. Morgan's Market became a waiting room between endings. People came from different disasters, different timelines, different death, different last days. Because the world doesn't just end once. It's on a loop, like a record spinning. Sometimes it jumps track and scratches and skips. Other times it's the next song after a little scratchy, quiet hum. But it's the same record going round and round. One woman came into Morgan's, covered in ash, and asked for bottled water. Man in a tuxedo bought batteries and wept silently in the candy aisle. A teenage girl with glass in her hair purchased a single apple and said, "I just wanted one normal thing." That line stayed with me. One normal thing. That's what people want when the world starts clawing through the walls. Not answers, not theology. Not a white bearded prophet with footnotes. One normal thing. Cup of coffee, a working light, a familiar song. Can of peaches. We pretend civilization is made of laws, governments, markets, institutions, and flags. Maybe. But civilization is also made of tiny agreements. The bread will always be where bread belongs. The door will open when we approach it. The cashier will ask if we found everything okay, and we will lie. Yeah, we say. Even when we found nothing okay. Maybe heaven is not pearly gates. Maybe hell is not fire. Maybe the afterlife is wandering aisle 7 forever, trying to remember what you came in for. Maybe that's just retail. Hard to tell some nights. Marlene vanished first. She was right there, at register 1, scanning soup for a woman whose face I could never remember. The scanner beeped. Marlene coughed. The lights flickered. Then register 1 was empty. No scream, no flash. Just Marlene's crossword puzzle lying unfinished beside the receipt printer. I picked it up. The clue she'd been working on was 6 letters. Final resting place. She had written, Market. Russell went next. He walked through the automatic doors carrying his clipboard and didn't come back. For a moment, the doors opened onto the parking lot, then onto a beach beneath a black sun, then onto nothing but white light. Then they closed. Corey and I stayed for what felt like 3 more nights, maybe longer. We stopped pretending the shifts matter. We sat on the floor near customer service and drank warm soda from damaged cans. He told me he used to think leaving town would save him. He had planned to move west, work in music, do something with sound engineering. Boy, could I use that guy. "What about you?" he asked. "What about me? Where were you gonna go? What were you gonna do?" I almost laughed. Came out a bit of a choke sound instead. That is the cruelest question you can ask someone at the end of the world. What were you going to do? As if all of life is not a rough draft, interrupted by weather. "I don't know," I said. He nodded. "Yeah, me neither." The lights flickered. Somewhere, deep in the store, a child laughed. Not happily, not cruelly, just distantly, like a memory playing in another room. Corey stood. "I think my mom's outside." I looked at the doors. They opened onto a small kitchen, warm yellow light. Remember when lights used to be yellow instead of white? You had an amber tint to a parking lot at night, instead of the glaring, bright white that sets your eyes on edge like your teeth when somebody scrapes on a fork. But a small kitchen, warm yellow light, table set for dinner, steam rising from a pot on the stove. And a woman's voice called Corey's name. He took one step forward, hesitating. "Corey," I said. He looked back at me, and he was crying. "She used to make chili on Fridays." There are warnings you can give a person that don't matter. Don't go. It's not real. It's a trap. But hunger has many forms. He walked through. The doors closed. And I was alone. After that, the store grew quiet. Not empty. Never empty. Just quiet. Kind of quiet that waits with you. I walked the aisles. I faced the labels. I mopped a spill near frozen foods, though the mop water had turned black and reflected stars instead of the lights on the ceiling. I made coffee in the break room. I restocked canned peaches. That seemed important. The outside world, when the door showed it at all, was gone in stages. First the parking lot, then the road, then the town, then the sky. Eventually, beyond those sliding glass doors that I never passed close enough to make them open on my own, there was only darkness. Not night. Night has texture. Night has distance. Has insects, wind, engines, dogs barking 3 streets over. This was the absence of everything that had once agreed to exist. Agreed to exist. The automatic door still opened when someone approached from the other side. I don't know how. I stopped asking. A peach woman came in at 11:43. Of course she did. "Excuse me," she said. "Do you still have canned peaches?" I looked at her gray coat, her blue scarf, her kind but empty eyes. "Aisle 7, I said. She smiled. "You're very helpful. Can I ask you something?" She paused. "Yes?" "Why peaches?" For the first time, her expression changed. This was that bad punchline. That punchline that makes you cringe and laugh out of courtesy. But her expression changed. Not much, just enough to suggest a person waking a little bit from a dream and realizing that the room they're in is unfamiliar. "My husband liked them," she said, looking around, dazed. "Liked?" She looked towards aisle 7. "I was making dessert for Sunday dinner. Then the sirens started before I finished." "What sirens?" She blinked, her face clearing, the cloud lifting, the smile returning. "Excuse me," she said. "Do you still have canned peaches?" I almost answered. Then I didn't. Instead, I walked with her. Aisle 7 was fully stocked, every shelf neat, every label facing forward. Peaches in light syrup, peaches in heavy syrup, sliced peaches, halves, store brand, name brand, cans from companies that didn't exist anymore and perhaps never had. She reached for one, her hand trembling. "I can never remember," she whispered. "What?" "If I made it home." There are moments when the universe gives you no explanation, no solution, no grand lesson carved in fire, swathed on a hillside. Just a small human sadness standing under fluorescent lights. I took a can from the shelf and placed it in her hands. "I think you did," I said to her, patting her hands. I don't know why I said it. Don't know why I did it. Maybe kindness is another routine, for some of us at least. Maybe lying gently is sometimes the last useful tool we have, the last kindness we can give. She held the can against her chest, and for the first time, she didn't go to the register. She walked to the end of the aisle, where the dairy section should have been. Instead, there was a doorway. Beyond it, a warm kitchen light, a table, steam rising from a dish, someone humming. The woman looked back at me. "Thank you," she said, like she knew something I wasn't really sure of. Then she stepped through. The doorway, not a door, just the doorway, an opening between one place and another, closed. Aisle 7 was suddenly missing one can. I stood there for a long time. At least I think I did. Time had become more of a suggestion than a law. And here's the part I still think about, assuming thinking is what I'm doing. We spend our lives pretending routine is small. Wake up, make coffee, go to work, buy groceries, feed the cats, check the mail, complain about the weather, forget why we walked into the room we just went into. We treat these things as background noise, the boring stuff, the filler between moments that matter. But maybe routine is not filler. Maybe routine is the spell we cast against chaos, the protection that we put up in front of ourselves. Maybe every ordinary act is a little declaration. I am still here. The world still has shape. The bread belongs on this shelf. The peaches belong in aisle 7. I belong somewhere, even if I've forgotten where. When the world ends, most people will not be looking at the sky. They'll be looking at something familiar, something they can hold, something with weight, something with a label they recognize, whether it's a can of peaches or another person. And maybe that's not weakness. Maybe that's how humans can carry fire through the dark. Not as heroes, not as prophets, not as chosen ones with swords and theme music, not the stuff I write into fantasy and science fiction, but as tired people under bad lighting, choosing soup and batteries and coffee and pet food and birthday cards. Choosing one more normal thing. Well, the lights are still on here. The coolers still hum. The doors still open. Somewhere beyond aisle 7, the darkness waits like a patient customer. I don't know if I'm alive. I don't know if this store is real. I don't know if the world ended years ago, or if it's ending now, or if every ending has its own Morgan's Market, waiting at the edge of everything with stocked shelves and a broken freezer, knocking softly in the back. But every night, I make sure the cans face forward. Every night I mop the floors, and I brew coffee no one drinks. And every night, at 11:43, I listen for the doors. Because someone is always coming in from the dark. Someone always needs one normal thing. If you ever find yourself driving through a town that should not be there, past a dead bank and a laundromat with half its letters missing, and you see a grocery store glowing softly at the edge of the road, keep driving. Unless, of course, you need something. In which case, come inside. The lights are awful, coffee is worse, but aisle 7 is fully stocked. Thank you for spending part of your evening here in the tavern. You enjoy strange stories, eerie reflections, and darker wanderings through impossible places. More strange doors await at TravisSivart.com. Jack Tucker would probably tell us that every traveler eventually finds himself standing in some kind of threshold place eventually. A tavern, a crossroads, a lonely road, or a grocery store with the lights still on long after the world should have gone dark. Until next time, mind the shadows and watch the quiet places carefully. And for more strange reflections and darker tales, visit TravisSivart.com.